Okay, hello everybody. This is Dima, ICP Ukraine leader, and I'm excited to have with us Tiago from ICP Hub Portugal. I'll give the word to Tiago in a bit. Today we're gonna do the workshop about how to do internet and everything you want actually 100% on chain and how this is possible these days. So we're going to have a presentation which also going to be practical. So we're going to have three parts. It's going to be the first part going to be more historical and theoretical. So Tiago will share about different stages of internet and blockchain, how we moved and how we can do now everything on chain, not only tokens. The second part going to be showcasing, right? So what was built on chain, what are examples, what you can do. And the third part going to be practical for those of you who want to do that yourself. And Tiago will share some sources and how this can look like. Okay, so this is a short introduction. Tiago, up to you. Please, the word to you. Please make a short intro about yourself. I know you're a Web3 developer, and I know you're a great mentor to startups. I've encountered you at the hackathon.
Yeah,
So,
try.
floor to you.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Tiago. As Dima has said, I work more closely with the PT ICP Hub, but I've been on the ICP ecosystem for about 2 years now. Before the ICP came to my life, I was doing Web 2 normal development for full stack for 5 years. Then I did this boot camp for an entire week, and I confirmed already I was a big fan of ICP. I was already following it a lot, but more not technical. And from that boot camp, it actually confirmed that the stack is really impressive. That already it exists. You can actually code on it, and it's not something just on the roadmap. And yes, since then I've been amazed, and even the constant evolution of ICP keeps amazing me. And since then, I've been freelancing. After the freelancing, I've been working more closely with the hub, and now I am full time there. I am the tech lead. I am also part of the accelerator program that we have. And our main goal is to allow, as also in Ukraine, any developer or the co-founder that wants to participate in the ecosystem of ICP to understand about the grants, to understand how the tech works, and also how you could actually have your own startup in the Web3 ecosystem. Pros and cons, because not everything is perfect. And yeah, if everything is aligned, how the hubs can actually support. And we will, for sure, in the end, also talk a little bit about, so stay until the end to understand a little bit more about opportunities and also how Ukraine ICP can help. So without further ado, I will talk a little bit about a small presentation that I have prepared. And as Dima was saying, the beginning is more theoretical. So maybe some of you have questions. Feel free to also be discussing in the chat. But one of the main ones is, what the hell is IC, right? Some of you maybe already had some presentations, but I always like to kickstart things with the most succinct phrase that I could get. And after several tries, this is the one that I like the most. The IC, you should be capable of seeing that it behaves a lot like a decentralized cloud. Just think about it. It's a cloud, the same as you would have for AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. It pretty much hosts code and allows people to interact with code. So, but in a more decentralized way and built on blockchain technology. And that is the key difference of the IC. So you can actually have 100% on-chain services and apps, okay? And we will walk through some of them in a minute. But before I go, sometimes people ask as well, what does IC bring into the ecosystem? How is the IC different from the other blockchains? I think it's important to categorize as generations because they come to solve a specific problem. They're very good at solving that specific problem. Let's look, for example, the first generation that is more towards the cryptocurrency purpose. The main idea was to solve the double spend problem. And with that, we have shared database and ledger and allowing for the first time to actually have these transactions online of money and cryptocurrencies. But many others than Bitcoin appeared around that time or after that time. We have Ripple, we have Monero, we have Dogecoin, we have so many other ones. And if you see their purpose and technology architecture is only as a cryptocurrency. Okay, that's the main purpose of it. It hardly has any smart contracts attached to it, for example. The second generation, where Vitalik Buterin was trying to change Bitcoin, but he couldn't because, yeah, the architecture would necessarily be very different. So frustrated with not being capable of changing and making Bitcoin the world computer, he actually created Ethereum, the white paper that you probably all know. And the main focus of it, the main frustration, is to not only have transactions, but also have logic attached to it. So first you have the transaction, but then you can have a consequence that is already programmed. Like if you make a transaction, then I give you an NFT, a transaction back an NFT. Or maybe I give you, I can give you interest of the money that you put into me, or the asset, the NFT that you give it to me. So it allowed definitely to have a lot of this consequence on top of the transactions. And from there, we have seen so much value already be unlocked. And pretty much these are all the things that you know. And many other layer twos and alternatives appeared around that time and still appearing that are more efficient, are more scalable, and it has sometimes other changes in the architecture that are important. But still, the main purpose is still transaction logic. This is very important to understand the purpose of them. And then on third generation blockchain, the frustrations are more towards I am opening a website. How can I interact with a dApp? How can a dApp do an ICO? Like pretty much has a DAO attached to it, but this DAO actually control the code of the front end, for example, or the real backend of storage. So there are many frustrations associated with it that it's not easy because the purpose is more transaction logic. It's not really general purpose as AWS is or Google Cloud is, and allows you to have services on the internet that are for general purpose. It doesn't really matter the purpose. You typically need to host stuff to control the code, to control the behavior, control front end. You need a CDN, like pretty much you need to have a way to route the requests, to have cache. Yeah, so many things, so many complex things that the original or older or earlier generations were not meant for at all. So a third generation blockchains are starting to appear. One of them is my favorite, that is ICP. And actually on ICP, you have not only smart contracts, but also memory attached to it. So try to think that you not only have the program, you also have a state that can be private attached to that smart contract. On the case of the IC, the smart contracts have private keys. They have a threshold signature. And the main thing here is that it allows to have private state, and this private state to behave a lot like stateful serverless functions. If you ever played with serverless functions on Azure or on Google or on AWS, it's really easy because you just focus on maybe JavaScript or TypeScript, or just focus on the logic of the dApp and not so much on the on other things like infrastructure. And that's the same case for ICP, you don't focus so much on infrastructure because the infrastructure is decentralized. It's meant to be decentralized. So the main idea is that you focus more on the dApp itself.
Yeah, Tiago, I have a question. You also added a few alternatives that are quite popular, right? Like Solana and Near. But I understand, of course, that it still has so many differences between Near and Solana. Can you outline few of
Yes,
them?
I put them here because although the architecture is different, I think they are struggling with the same problem. Solana to be a very developer and even user centric to have the best possible experience, the fastest possible experience. But yeah, like the developer experience is really great on Solana. That's why so many Ethereum EVM chains actually made the transition to a more WASM different architecture that Solana gives. And in Near, they are using the UI so that you can have components directly on the browser, and people are interacting with their smart contracts directly from the browser. They already are doing it. Although the choices there are a little bit different. For example, as far as I am aware of, Near is still doing on their own domain, not actually having the capacity to do custom domains, not having the capacity to have the boundary nodes as DIC already has. And yeah, the thing is, ICP from the beginning was designed to be a third generation blockchain, and they spent a lot of time doing R&D, and they're still doing R&D. Are famously said for to have the more than 1,000 man-hour years of research and development, and that's definitely true. When you start to play with the tech, you see that it looks easy, but oh my god! Like regarding the computer science on distributed systems, if anyone has gone through that, like it's amazing. Many of the difficulties that they have already passed and make it so easy. But yeah, it's state of the art regarding distributed systems. Yeah. And if you ask me, what does it do? What can DIC bring into the table that maybe others are not? I think the most important thing is open services and allowing, because a DAO or an association of people can actually control code, they can actually control revenue, they can actually control secrets like emails and so on. Like you can have a fully 100% internet on-chain kind of experience. You also want to have it, yeah, to be transparent, to be robust. So a lot of this is community controlled. If we look back to the beginning of Web3 and the vision of Web3, that was a lot what people promised, especially on the times of the ICOs. I'm from that time. But the truth was that the technology was still not there. Like you could not control code, you could not control secrets and so on. Like these external interactions on the browser, you couldn't. So definitely the IC is trying to bring in the closure, the full vision of Web3. And instead of just the theory, maybe we can actually see it live, right? Because again, this is not just on the roadmap. For sure, we can see. So I prepared a few examples.
Yeah. Let's start with OpenChat. I've started using OpenChat a few months ago, and I think it's really great in terms of it's completely on chain, but it also feels very natural because yeah, it pretty much resembles you Slack or Telegram. Yeah, and you can have a subscription. So it has all these amazing features, but it's also fully
Exactly,
on-chain.
exactly. You summarized it pretty well. I would add to there that if we go to network and way to prove that this is actually coming from the IC. So although it's oc.app, this is actually an example of custom domain On the IC, we call it a custom domain, and it's going through the boundary nodes. Pretty much this domain is going to request to the boundary node, and then from the boundary node, it goes to the API and to the canister, to the blockchain, and asks the blockchain, hey, the HTTP request method, what does it return? And then it certifies the response, and you can know that because on the headers, it has this certification, okay? And you can even know what is this canister ID that is providing this front end. But even all the experience that you have there is IC related. You can have proposals. For example, these are of the DNNS, like the DAO that controls the IC, for example. There is the DAO itself of OpenChat, where people can control the code itself, like or approve or reject the code itself. For example, create they have a complex infrastructure, but pretty much you have the commits and you can see what are the changes that they are doing and approve or reject whatever they are doing. Okay, and this kind of experience is, I think it's pretty cool, and I think it's kind of the future of the open services concept. And one last thing that I want to mention is that when I click on my user, I actually have a user ID, and this user ID means that is a canister. Like every user that is paying becomes a canister, and from that canister, all my messages to other people, all my images, videos, even wallets, cryptocurrency, it's all under my control. It's not under the control of OpenChat devs or the OpenChat DAO. It's actually under my control. That's something that I think is pretty cool. Yeah, it provides as a service, and it's also an example of having everything on chain. Okay. The other example that I brought to you is Decide AI. So many people are talking about AI nowadays. Everyone wants to do something on AI. And I think one of the coolest examples that we have is Decide AI. They have, about 2 months ago, deployed this to mainnet, where this experience, if you see on the URL, it's mod.dev. This one is, again, another custom domain that is going through a canister. And this is the front end part. But after the recording has happened, it's going to send this recording to the backend. And the AI in the backend, fully on chain, is going through the recording, understanding if this is a human. And if it is a human, then let's create a hash that makes sure to be unique. And if that person comes here again, the hash that will be generated, even if you try to have like different background and so on, I have actually tried, and he has refused me. So it's pretty cool that he can understand what is the human part, the AI, and then try to create a hash, and from that hash be difficult for, at least I wasn't able to surpass and try to pretend that you are someone else. Okay, so after it runs through the creation of the hash and ensuring that you are unique, it's the first time that you are going through that AI. It creates an issues this credential, and with that credential, people can use on OpenChat, for example. But it can be used anywhere else. It's a verified credential, like a decentralized ID on the case of the IC. And the cool stuff about it is that it avoids bots, right? It avoids, it allows for people to have access to things that are supposed to be for humans only, like access to channels, or you don't need a premium account, but you can still be a free account and still receive airdrop. So there are some things that that it already carries some utility, but the most important thing is wow, running AI on chain is not just a fad; it's actually true. And last weekend, I had the AI Hacker House, and I could see a lot of students a lot of hackers being really happy to deploy their on-chain model and actually having inference on-chain, just giving some tokens, pretty much some words, and replying back some tokens. And it was a small one. It was ChatGPT 2. But the IC, as it's growing in capabilities, and in the next year, it's planned to have an entire dedicated AI subnet running dedicated machines with GPU on chain. Yeah, I think it would be really cool to have AI on top of your service. Okay, you not only have the front end, back end, you can also have an AI unit that is running on chain. And a little bit in line, but this will be a faster one. Elna AI is a marketplace. And in here, you can see example of marketplaces, pretty much having payments, users, logins, storing information, and everything in here is on chain. Okay. On the case of Elna AI, it's more about for now, small bots. Can I ask you? But on the case of the small ones, they are very, very, very focused. I pretty much stop. If you try to ask anything that is a little bit harder, it will just go back to the default message of you can only ask me A, B, and C. And but the main thing that already passes here is that you have AI running on chain. You can have the interaction on chain. You can have the payments on chain. Okay, these ones are free, but in the future they're already preparing for it to be paid. And because these AI models, they have storage, they have update costs. So as normal AI models, but in the case of the IC, be aware that you need to go through consensus. So you would always need to go 13 times the same operation, okay, the same cost of inference. Luckily for us, inference is not as costly at all compared to training. The most costly is on training. Running AI models is more the storage part, and yeah, but definitely the many calculations that you still need to do. You would always need to have a business model on top of it, so that it's not just for free completely, or else the company would be paying those costs alone. Yeah, and that's a little bit about the example of the marketplace that I have. I'm showing these examples more on the sense of what can you do, right? What is the IC cool about? Because I bet that you probably are still thinking about doing the next DeFi on DIC. And I receive a lot of projects, and I have to confess, maybe half of them are DeFi related, because Ethereum and EVM chains are still the predominant business around. But you can actually do nowadays with blockchain so much more, so much more. And actually, all my examples have not to do with DeFi. And another one, the last one, is about games. I'm a little bit geek, and so one of the things that attracted me for the first time to the IC was actually game. I'm going to show you Cubetopia, for example, to start. And the thing I want to show is that this is another custom domain, as you probably know. And yeah, so like you can already play fully on the browser, but also in this case, Joey, he did Three.js. And the thing that I love the most on this example is to be website native. So Three.js is written in JavaScript or TypeScript. And Joey loved the fact that he could make the front end and the back end on Hazel, which is in TypeScript. So both the back end and front end is it's comfortable for him. Everything is 100% on chain. The only thing that is not is the positions of the players. Okay, this is actually a multiplayer game. If you on yourself can, if you want, play thecooptopia.com, you would actually come here and be on the same playing with me. Okay, so this is also another cool example of having 100% on-chain experience, okay, and 100% on the internet experience. Going back to the slides, but this one doesn't yet have something that I think is going to be crucial for decentralized games, that is a way to self-evolve. Try to think like Roblox, that the or Minecraft, like the reason why they are still there after so many years, it's the fact that content creators are constantly creating a new experience, constantly creating a new experience, sharing and profiting from it. So having that kind of system of self actualization is very important on a decentralized game. And one of the experiments, more recent experiments, is DAO Venture, and they can play. And but I wanted to show you is actually the DAO part. People can actually create proposals, and on these proposals, they change the image. They change different parts. They can even add new, because it's a text, more text-based and image-based game, a little bit like Dungeons and Dragons. You can change the quests. You can change the options that appear to you that you need to choose from. The consequences, the what it affects, if it's a sword, how much does it attack? Like you can change everything in here. And I think it's pretty cool because it's already starting to show what a self-actualization kind of game could be, where people just submit, and then they can be tracked. In this case, it's not yet tracking the contributions, but the only last part I would definitely say is tracking the contributions and having a payment system on top of it, like Stripe, for example, or anything like that, or just ICP, and allowing people to pay. And after you have the revenue on a certain account, automatically distribute to the many people that have contributed to the game. And that kind of self reinforces and allows the game to continue to evolve. That is my hope to actually see that in the near future. But yeah, I definitely think we are going in that direction. The last but not least is more of homework for you.
Tiago,
Yeah.
can I ask a question before we started
Yes.
the practical part? Um, sometimes people are also referring to some downsides. Of course, we see some upsides, right, of ICP, like how it is better than other blockchains. But I also sometimes receive question about what are the downsides, how and how they should be mitigated in the future. Are you planning to solve things like I saw some comments and issues with regards to mobile applications, like on iOS, etc. So maybe we can cover that as well, just to be
Yep.
transparent, let's say.
Yes. Yes, definitely. As I think the most important part, even for the career perspective, I many times talk about that. When people are moving from Web 2 to Web 3, like me, they should be aware that it's going to be an entirely different stack. Although, as I'm going to show you in a minute, coding is the same or very similar. The truth is that the app is being run on a different stack, and the consensus, the fact that you need to go through 13 machines, that all of them need to agree that it's going to be the same output. Already the IC is doing it at a fast pace, but it's still, the update costs are still taking on average around 2 seconds to finish. So every time that I'm on a website and I'm sending a message, that message is only going to be like broadcast after 2 seconds, something like that. Um, it's still Web 2 good experience, but not as fast as, for example, on Cooptopia, where they wanted to have the players' positions. You want the finality to be on the milliseconds. You definitely don't want to wait 2 seconds, and even the cost of it doesn't pay back. So also people need to be aware that if they are making constant update calls that are insignificant, I don't think it makes sense to be on the blockchain. Why do you want, like, all the benefits of the blockchain, if actually the data point is useless, or after a few seconds it's already useless. So definitely, I think there is this narrative that Web3 is going to take all over the world. There's going to be tokenization of everything. And I'm a little bit skeptic about that. I think that running on a single machine in a centralized environment would still make sense for a lot of business logics. And that's what it is. Like, if you want the cost to be as low as possible, that will still be it. But if you want to do things that are more general, that it's important to be robust, that it's important to be tamper proof, that it's more global, then this kind of business solutions could make sense. So be prepared that whenever you're coding, and going also again to your question, there are many things that are still new, are still hard. For example, the libraries, or the maybe as you are developing some more edge cases, you're pretty much a bit alone in there. You're still the first ones that are trying to attempt such a thing. Well, one of them is, for example, mobile applications, as you were saying. I don't know many web apps that are connecting to the IC. Right now, you cannot have, because the marketplace is centralized. It's Apple Marketplace and Google Marketplace. But the most important part is that, yeah, like the way that it works, it's not native to the IC. The only thing that you can use related with the IC is the API. So you can make from your mobile app any HTTP request, and the IC, that's very frequent. The backend can and should behave like an API. So instead of your API being on Firebase, it can actually be on the IC, and that part be fully decentralized. That part be easy for people to, yeah, to track, to be transparent about what are the changes happening there, and so on. So yeah, but the main message here is, although it looks cool, although it's easy to code, be prepared for ambiguity, being prepared for things taking a little bit longer than the Web 2 experience.
Yeah, yeah, and it's still early days.
Yes, yes. I started 2 years ago, as I've mentioned, and when I started, Motoko didn't even have a proper package manager. I remember my first big frustrations were that. Then nowadays, like the whole experience is much better. The FX is much better. And just today, I was listening. They're broadcasting that they made significant upgrades to the protocol, and now we can hold 500 gigabytes. So we grew from 400 to 500. The full latency of the update calls has been reduced to almost a half, which is really cool. So these update calls that I was mentioning, taking around 2 seconds, now it's at 1.5, around that, or 1.3. So it's really cool that they are constantly making improvements on Ethereum. You would need, because the changes are hard to make. On the case of the IC, a new upgrade is being made almost every week. So people should be aware that it's fast, because it's a much more complex project, but it does evolve a lot faster because it has a DAO on top of it. It has subnet, so it allows for experimentation to happen on just one subnet, and then scale the replica versions to the other subnets. It's different, the
Yeah,
architecture.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, that's it. Maybe I should go quickly to the code, Dima. How
Yes.
are we regarding time? Maybe
Uh,
15
yeah,
minutes?
yeah. Let's have 15 minutes or so.
Okay,
That's
so I prepared for the code. I prepared. I'm going to show a code space, and I'm going to recommend people to use Motoko Bootcamp for you to learn. That's the best example that I know of how to start on the IC. That's also how I started on the IC myself a long time ago. So this only got better. There is self-study version where people can actually go through uh, a handbook that is on chain itself. Yeah, this DAO adventure book, it goes through a quest where you go through different chapters and you can learn a lot about data structures. You can learn about what is Candid, like that is the interface language. Um, many topics and experiment yourself, but I wouldn't be able to cover in 15 minutes for sure. So definitely I would recommend to go through Motoko Bootcamp as a great way to start on the IC. And then you can go to other courses and other languages. Be aware that we have on DACAD a few challenges there where people can even be paid and rewarded as they are being certified. You can, the two other languages outside of Motoko that I would recommend to start is TypeScript and Rust. Okay. Because they're the most active ones on the IC, but you could go to .NET, you could go to C++, you could go to Python. Nowadays, there is a CDK, that is a client the development kit that allows that library allows you to interact with the blockchain. So imagine that you're in Python. Just with that library, you can sign transactions and interact with the IC blockchain. You are on Unity game, and you with .NET, you can actually sign transactions to the blockchain and have the backend or the save state, for example, of a game to actually be on chain, or create NFTs or something like that directly from Unity. And I think those CDKs are pretty powerful. But as a language, if you want to do like the full dApp, I would say TypeScript, Rust, and Motoko. Motoko to start, and Rust if you ever want to go SNS, which is the DAO way of doing things on the IC. Like if you would be big and have something production ready, I would say that Rust is a must. But to start, definitely a lot of the content, a lot of the context of the stack. I think you learn better in Motoko. That is more. It's a language that only exists on the IC. It was created by Dfinity itself, and I think it's a great way to learn. And what I wanted to show.
Tiago, sorry, can you also
Mhm.
share the link with me where you can learn? Actually, not the other, no, this one I know about Montauk, but the other one that you shared,
Yes.
so I
The
can share it immediately with the
arcade.
community. Yeah.
There you are. The community is ICP.
Thank you.
And I wanted to show a quick look through what should be a good experience on the IC. Very recently, I prepared for a conference that happened in Lisbon, AI conference, a hacker house. And on that hacker house, because people only had 2 days, it's not a lot to learn. I wanted them to play very fast with the tech. Be aware that you have Motoko Playground. If you want to, on the browser, just experiment You can see different examples here. Let's imagine a counter. That is a classic. And oh, there's a counter built on Hazel or not. No, it's Amazon. Let me put deploy. Actually, can I deploy? Interesting. Saying deploy front end. I will need to go to the backend. Deploy backend. In my times, when I started with Motoko Playground, they never had the front end canisters. So another proof that this is always evolving. You know, on the front end. So already the backend exists, and I can quickly show that if someone, this is an update call. Okay, there is also a query call that is to read information. Query calls are 200 milliseconds, so very fast, 0.2 seconds. I can show how fast they are. Get count. Yep. You see, I'm pressing, it's replying. If I put increment, it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 2. You see, it's 2-second finality around that. Oh, it's even saying here 1 second. Well, I count 2, but yeah. And the main idea here is that the language is very close to JavaScript and TypeScript. It's mostly inspired in TypeScript, but be aware that because it needs to be performant, it really needs to be strongly data typed. You would always need to say the net, and the way that it handles nulls, it can be a little bit strange in the beginning. It also, like Motoko, has like variations like okay and error, like, but it can be any flag. Okay, it's just the variation is this. Yeah, the language itself has a few quirks in it, but most of it can be easy to read for many people that are already coming from a programming background. Okay. I also like to show the difference between var and stable on this example. Stable, okay, and var. Let me actually remember that it was 2. If I upgrade the contract, pretty much if I redeploy it, upgrade, the state memory is going to be lost. Get count 0 and increment, it will go to 1. You see, and the reason why it happened was because this variable was on the dynamic memory, and this dynamic memory try to think as RAM, okay, that can go to 4 gigabytes around that. But if it was a stable variable that pretty much is being stored on on the file system, try to think it like that, it's being stored in the stable memory, that part behaves a lot more like just writing on the file system. It does not matter that you're restarting your computer, it's still there. And a good example of that, we'll go to 3, for example, and I will upgrade, pretty much restarting the machine, kind of changing the WASM and redeploying, turning it on. And if I go to get count, it'll be a string. You see, it was not lost, the stable and the dynamic. It has, in these examples, I don't, let me go to the Hacker House. In here, we're also doing HTTP out calls, which I think is a cool thing. And what I wanted to recommend, either on Motoko Bootcamp or just on your own, on DACAD, on any of those challenges, don't install DFX directly on your computer, because you're only going to do these certifications for maybe a few days, a week or two. It's not worth all the setup cost of maybe spending an entire day setting things up. When you go to getting started, install internet computer. I think I already have it here. It's saying about how to install the different things. Instead of going through there, I strongly recommend user either Gitpod or GitHub Codespaces, and you can start from there or on Gitpod, either the Rust version or the Motoko version, or just go to my link and actually copy from my dev container things, because I already added the prettier part. I also added the Copilot AI part, and a few other things that allows a dev experience to be quite nice and fast. And for you to see how easy it should be, it's something as simple as creating a new code space. And also it's free. Like, the best is for an entire week, you won't spend all the hours that you have on a small machine. And for doing the basic stuff, yeah, for sure, you don't need a bigger machine. And as you're seeing now, like it just builds the code space. You don't need to worry about setting up Node on your machine. If you're coming from Windows, it's a big pain because you need to install either Windows Subtype Linux or Docker on your machine for you to be capable of running DFX. So definitely I would recommend just start with CodeSpace. If you're only focused on learning and then moving on to something else, this is probably enough to get a certification. Yeah, pretty much after it has deployed, I wanted to show how fast it is to deploy actually something. Because in here, the playground, the way that it works is, this is the main net, but it holds for 20 minutes your code. After 20 minutes, it's gone. And the way it's meant is there is some reserved canisters for this network of Motoko Playground. And every time that you want to deploy something on the playground, it reserves that for you for 20 minutes, puts there the WAS, and after 20 minutes just forgets. Because we have also timers on the IC, and it allows to have this kind of management things. Yeah, so in your case, you would probably be doing dfx start. This command, what it does is to start a local version. Oh, it's already on. Let me stop then. dfx start. Yep. So what it does is it creates on your computer, and in this case the remote computer, a local replica, a local blockchain of the IC, and it opens up for it to be accessed through this port. Okay. It now allows you to do dfx deploy. That is the command that I wanted to share and show. dfx deploy. The way it behaves is, in this example, I think it's, yeah, Motoko in the backend and JavaScript, a React, Hello World example on the front end. It's with Vite web server, and what I wanted to show is the way that it's deploying. Even if you are deploying to the IC, it's going to be the same. First, it creates canisters, pretty much the smart contracts that are going to exist. It pays for them. In the case of the IC, it's the concept of cycles. And we have reverse gas model. That's how they call it. Instead of the users be paying per transaction a certain fee, in here the payer is the controller of the canister, okay, or the canister itself that needs to be paying. And this allows a similar behavior to what you have on AWS or these usual clouds, where at the end of the month you pay the bill. The cool thing is that if you want to have a DAO and you have a AWS bill, it's a little bit difficult how that bill would be paid by a DAO. On the case of the IC, that is taken care of. Like it just exists cycles, and you have a cycles dispenser, and the DAO is constantly paying for the canisters that is associated with or controlling. And anyone actually be aware that, for example, in the case of ICP Savior, that game that I showed you for homework, that game can actually live forever because it's very cheap. It's costing like $2 a year because it's mostly just storage, like 60 megabytes or something. And anyone can top up that canister. Like as long as anyone is using, anyone thinks that that game should last for longer, people can just top up easily that canister. And yeah, going back to the example that I want to show, it first creates the canister. After that, it deploys, it builds the code, of course, it compiles the code and then pushes the WASM, like it compiles to a WASM. The WASM, if my memory is not wrong, should be somewhere here. Yeah. It compiles to WASM and then it just pushes this WASM to the canister. Okay. In this case, it's the local canister, but it's still pushing. This is still generating. This DID is the Candid. Remember saying that Candid is the interface language. So it always needs, it's an automatic process every time that you are building on DFX. It's constantly going through the methods that you have written. And from there, automatically generating the what data types it is, exactly what should be the interface between your canister and other canisters that are written in other languages. Imagine your canister can be written in Motoko and another canister being in Rust, and they still need to be capable of communicating. Int on Rust needs to be the same, not be the same, but needs to be parsed and understood every time that you are sending a message to each other. So that is why Candid is so important. Actually, when I started on the IC, the thing that I valued the most was Candid. Like how hard, like having a Candid, really good, useful Candid interface, language interface is not easy. Yeah, then the front end is deployed with assets. In the case of the front end, it's an asset canister, and the asset canister already has a behavior, like some methods that allows you to push assets to it, and that's what it's happening automatically underneath the hood. Why does DFX know and behave that way? It's because on DFX JSON, I or you have set that if it is the front end, the type is assets. And now DFX deploy already knows if it's an assets canister, then it should behave that there is an source, and from that source is going to publish information, okay, to the front end. So everything on assets should have been sent to the front end, okay, and that's what it does. And it's cool because in a very easy, intelligent, easy way for anyone, you can actually have a front end on chain. Let me show you how does that look. In this case, it's going to be it's in the code space, so I need to add this part. And here it is. So even yourself, if you're working local or on Gitpod, etc., you should always be capable of seeing the front end, and you can interact with it. Hopefully. Unless something goes wrong. Greet is not a function. True. Because on this Hacker House, I changed the backends. Okay, but on your Hello World example, it will work. Okay, so when you do dfx new and the name of a project like hello, it's going to ask you what language do you want, and if you put something like that, it will pretty much just create. Okay, and in that Hello World example, it's going to be a lot like this, and you can interact. And that's pretty much it. Like, I did not want to go too much into technical explanations. Like, you can import things from Motoko package system, that is mops. But this is normal in any language. You usually have a package system. Yeah, and I think that's it. Dima, do you want to ask me any questions that maybe I haven't covered? Any curiosity that maybe you think developers would also want to know?
Yeah, it's hard for me, Tiago,
Yeah,
because I'm not a developer, so yeah, the last part was
I
hard for
bet.
me. But yeah, I hope it was useful for the guys. I've also shared the links for Motoko Bootcamp and the other link. I also shared some quotes from you in the chat of the community. So I think it went quite well. We covered quite a lot, including the differences between different iterations of blockchains, the big three leaps, and now also a few examples and how it actually works. So I enjoyed it so far. Thank you so much, Tiago. And yeah, a few words about ICP Ukraine. So we just started about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, and we are hosting a series of events. Probably some of you have already participated. If not, we invite you to our following events. We're still gonna have a few meetups, and we're gonna have an event, a bigger event on the 1st of December. It's gonna be called Kyiv Blockchain Day. I totally invite you to join. It's gonna be in Unit City, in a very nice place in Ukraine. And this is the plan for the coming weeks. In December, we're also going to do a meetup. And for the next year, for the upcoming quarter, we plan to do something more practical. We are still, thinking about the plans. Maybe we're going to do a hackathon, a boot camp, or an incubation program later on. So if you have any ideas you want to share, you have something to contribute, feel free to drop me a message or just go to this link tree and drop a message inside the chat in the community. Would be nice to see you on our Twitter, in Telegram, and yeah, we continue to develop ICP in Ukraine. So far, it's going good. Hopefully, it's gonna be going even better. And thank you so much, Tiago, for sharing all the experience and putting it nicely and easy to understand, even for me, even though I'm not code literate person, but still it was very nice workshop. Enjoyed it so far. I think we're gonna cut it in many pieces and in smaller fractions, and we'll share it with guys on Twitter, on Telegram as well, for those who didn't
Thank
join.
you.
Yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you so much, Tiago. So have a good, wonderful rest of the day, and see you everybody online or offline.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.